All right, and there he is. Hey, Rick. I think we're just waiting on a couple more people to hop on, so maybe starting 5 or 4:35, if that sounds good to you. All right, everybody, welcome in. We will get started in just a few minutes. We just want to make sure that we leave enough time for people to find the link and get on, but we will be starting in just a few minutes now. Julianne and Tom, I see that you might have lost sound. Are you hearing stuff now?
Just picture Casablanca. I'm guessing.
Okay, I think we are good to go, and we have a lot of people on here, so thank y'all for joining us. So my name is Walker, and I will be kind of your MC for today. And Rick, who you see with his mother Marilyn there and their dog Chili, they will all be taking you through a culinary tour of Morocco, including 2 dishes. One of them, which I'm really, really excited about. I'm excited for both, but there's a great chicken dish called chicken tagine that Rick will be showing you a little bit later. But thank you again for hopping on, everybody. Like I said, we're going to Morocco, as you all know, and you see some beautiful pictures down there of Morocco. It's a gorgeous country with this very distinct architecture on the Mediterranean coast of Africa. And so just to take you through a little bit of the history and a few facts about Morocco. So Morocco, like I said, is on that northern coast of Africa, and it is directly across from the Strait of Gibraltar, that point where Spain almost touches Africa, but doesn't quite. And it borders Algeria, as well as the Western Sahara to its south. So it's got that huge, expansive desert on its southern border, and then the Atlantic Ocean to the west, and of course the Mediterranean Sea to the north. So just to take you through a little bit of history on what we call Morocco today, it of course was not called that for a large portion of its history. It was actually controlled by Carthage. So if you remember Hannibal sacking Rome and his elephants, that's the same Carthaginian Empire. And it was controlled by Carthage for a long time. Then it was taken over by the Romans as they expanded into northern Africa and really reached the height of their empire and even beyond. And then a lot of its influence comes from what we call the Arab conquest of, North Africa, Arabia, all of those places that the caliphates went through. So the Umayyad Caliphate took over what would become Morocco and called it what in Arabic is known as the Maghrib, which means the West. And so the Umayyad Caliphate took it over. They were there for a long time, and many of its people throughout that period accepted Islam as their religion. But this is actually something that's true today. about 99% of Morocco's population is Muslim. So that is why we actually don't have an alcoholic cocktail today. So I'll be taking you through our cocktails and all that kind of stuff. But like I was saying, so they were taken over by the Umayyad Caliphate and became this Islamic center for learning and food and culture. But then they were taken over by the French and made a French protectorate colony basically in 1912. But they were able to regain their independence in 1956, and that's where we get this modern day Morocco that we have today. But we still have it as our only or the only kingdom or monarchy in northern Africa, which is kind of cool. So it's the Kingdom of Morocco officially. So it's continuing to modernize into today after it gained independence from the French. So this means social structures and all that kind of stuff. And to give you kind of a picture of what the country's like, you've got a lot of things like that you would know. Casablanca, of course, from the movie from the 40s that won an Academy Award. You've got port cities like Tangier and Agadir on the Atlantic and the Mediterranean. It's a bustling port city or port kind of city-based country. And then we turn to the cuisine. So it has a ton of different influences. So you're going to have your Mediterranean spices, a lot of influence from Spain. And I'm just realizing that the music is still coming through. So I'm going to stop share for just a second so I can turn off that music. But like I was saying, it is heavily influenced by southern Spain. So Andalusia is that southern region of Spain that carries the most influence in Morocco. And so you're going to get a lot of fish, a lot of fresh fish from the coast. You're going to get a lot of these really punchy spices like paprika and saffron and turmeric, cumin, stuff like that. And then you've got some other mixes and influences in there. So not just Mediterranean Spain, but a lot of Mediterranean countries with these Mediterranean spices, very fresh olive oil, things like that, and some other European countries. And then also a little bit of sub-Saharan cooking styles, which come up through the desert to Morocco to give it a little bit more of an African flavor than a lot of countries along the Mediterranean would have. And then we have a ton of staple proteins. So you're going to have beef, lamb, goat, mutton, chicken, which is what we'll have today, and a variety of seafood, of course, coming fresh from the Mediterranean or the Atlantic. You'll have savory and sweet and sour flavors prominently. So not a huge amount of super spicy food, but super flavorful. So like I said, you're going to have olive oil, argan oil, preserved lemon, these flavors that are going to impart a huge amount of flavor to the dishes that are going to be cooked. And Rick will show you a little bit of that later. So we'll actually start with a traditional Algerian / Moroccan bread called khobz. And Rick is going to show you this this bread, and we'll get it in the oven. And I will rejoin you a little bit later for a drink. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Rick.
Great. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I thought I'd give you a journey through, if you can see all the different ingredients, or can you see them?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Some of these are from my garden. As Walter mentioned, spices, food, protein, cooking styles migrate really just like people do. So you will see in the North African diet, which is really Algeria, some of the West Sahara, certainly Morocco, you will see Spanish influences, specifically Andalusia from the south of Spain, Seville, and west. You'll see a lot of Spanish, southern Spanish influence in the dish we're going to prepare. You'll see Mediterranean influence. And so most of the migration from around the world to the North Africa region was Mediterranean, Albania, Macedonia, Montenegro, Greece. It was southern Spain, Andalusia, and it was England, especially into Libya. So these spices that we're looking at are global, and that's fairly traditional for the North African diet. So what we'll be using in the chicken dish is celery here, that's from my garden, carrots, onion, Greek, Mediterranean olives, have the spices that Walker just walked through. Saffron, I'm using Spanish saffron. We've got sweet smoked paprika. I don't like to use the hot in this recipe. The sweet just floats better. We've got cayenne pepper. We've got ground ginger, not fresh. Fresh ginger has a very different taste than ground, and fresh ginger tends to absorb flavors around it, which we really don't want for this. We've got ground coriander. We've got ground cinnamon. We've got preserved lemon. Now, you know, a lot of people like the taste of preserved lemon. You'll see some of the preserved lemon rind right here. But if you want to buy it, you can buy it by the jar. It's like $13, or you can make it like I have. And it's real simple. Get about 4 or 5 lemons, quarter the lemons, throw them in the bottom of the container with a half a cup of, believe it or not, salt, sea salt if you have it. Then squeeze another 4 or 5 lemons, just juice them into the mix, fill up the balance with water, set it aside for a week or 2 weeks. And the taste of a preserved lemon is very different because the salt removes all those flavors. I mean, the salt removes all of the acidity from the lemon, and it's just really concentrated and sweet. Garlic. We've got a southern European romaine from my garden. We've got some thyme from the garden, and we've got chicken, and the chicken thighs with the fat and skin left on. So we'll be revisiting this in about a half an hour when we actually put together the chicken tashimi. For right now, we're going to make the bread. I need to turn this around. I'm going to refocus it. And if you will let me know whether you can see the ingredients.
Yep, that looks good right there, Rick.
Okay. So we're going to put together the kibbuth. And it's pronounced, it's KHOBZ, but it's pronounced like a school bus. It is a standard meal accompaniment for dinner later in the day in North Africa. It's a cousin of a Tuscan bread. I had mentioned that there were Spanish influences, also some Italian influences, especially in the bread. So this is a very, very hearty bread that's eaten at dinner. In the North African region, especially in Morocco, bread is bent and is actually used as an eating utensil.
Hey, Rick, could you lean into the mic a little bit more?
Can you hear me better now?
Yep, that sounds good.
Okay. Bread in North Africa is heavy and dense, and it's used actually as an eating utensil, just like a fork or a spoon. So we're going to start with the bread. You want to use high gluten flour. You want to use, I use bread flour. So for this recipe, it's really simple. 4 cups of bread flour, a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of sugar, and a tablespoon of yeast. These yeast packages, I use platinum. It's the best, and it activates a little slower, which we want, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But you can use any yeast. The yeast packages are a tablespoon, so you don't need to measure it. So we're going to go ahead and go. Start the mixture, start the kneading. Now let me get this yeast opened. All right, very good. Now we're making this bread at high altitude, and as you probably know, you have lower air pressure at higher altitude, and lower air pressure, yeast activates quicker. When it activates quicker, it makes the bread dry. So we want to slow that process down since we're kind of at high altitude. And the way we're going to do that, excuse me, Mom. First of all, we want to mix sugar and salt, which we have. Now we're going to create a hole in the middle. We want to separate the activation of the yeast from the flour itself to begin. So just create a little hole, put the dry yeast in the center, don't disperse it among the flour. I use a little small whisk. You can use your hands or a fork, and you want to introduce the water to the yeast. If you use really cold water like we are, it slows down the activation of the yeast, and that's really, again, what we want to do. So most recipes call for room temperature water. We're using really cold. All right. All we're doing now is bringing flour a little bit at a time into the yeast. You'll see it piled up. It'll collect in the whisk, but you want to keep the yeast in the center. Okay, can you all see that? I'm going to start using my hands now. And we're going to pull in yeast and flour from around, a little bit at a time, adding water all the time. Okay. Now, the yeast is activating because it's in ice cold water. You can see it clumping up. We're going to start now. Okay, Mom, would you grab the olive oil from over here?
Is
No, in the bottle.
oh,
Thank you. I want you to put just a couple of tablespoons in there. We can guess. I can eyeball it. Trust me. 1, a little more. There. Put some water in it.
water.
Water. Yes. And I want you to start adding it a little bit of time to this. Okay. Start pouring it in a little bit of time. We're slowly incorporating the olive oil. Leave it at that, Mom. That's good. And you can see how this is starting to fold in and clump. You don't want it wet and sticky. So just we need to be very careful on this. And you see how it's starting to clump up? Like a pie dough almost. That's exactly what you want. Okay, pour some more. All right. Now put more water in the container, please. Thank you. Okay. Keep going, disperse it all. A little more water. Okay, we're almost there. More water. Go ahead and fill it. Okay. Go ahead, disperse it. Now, do you see how it's starting to clump together like that? That's what you want, but you don't want it sticky. Go ahead and get more water. A little bit more. That ought to do it. Can you all hear me okay?
Yep, that sounds good, Rick. And it's perfect camera angle right there, I think.
We're almost there. It's time consuming. Okay. It's going to look real sticky on your hands, and that is what you want. A little more, Mom. Okay. Typically, you want about 1.25 cups of water. I do it by feel. I don't do it. Let me get my hands cleaned off. A little bit more. We're done. All right. Would you move that out of the way? Okay. Yeah. This looks unmanageable, but it's absolutely perfect. This is what you want. We'll get a little flour down. Out it comes. It'll be crumbly, just like that, but not for very long. I get a little more water on my hands. Thank you. Now this looks dry, but you want it to be exactly like this, like a pie crust almost.
And Rick, we have a question about how much olive oil did you use again?
About 2 tablespoons. But again, I do it, the recipe calls for about 1.5 cups of ice cold water and about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. But I just try and do it by feel.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, and you're going to need this. We don't have time to knead it all the way out. I can do that while you're making a drink. But you're going to need this for about 10 minutes. And all the flakiness is going to go away. Can you see how it's starting to come together? As you knead it, it will become more pliant in the right consistency, just like it is now. So we'll need this for another 10 minutes while you're making a drink, and it will be ready to go. And what we'll do is divide it into 2 halves. See how it's getting pliant now? This is just exactly how you want it. And we'll press it down to about 3/4 of an inch, about like that. Okay. And we're going to let it proof for about 15 to 20 minutes. And when we're done, it'll look like that. So that is what it will end up looking like after it proofs. We'll score it with a really sharp knife because you don't want to tear it. You want rough edges that will harden like a Tuscan bread. So a fairly deep score of about a half an inch, 3 or 4 of them. And we're going to let that set for about another 15 minutes and then into the oven it goes. So I'll turn it back to you now.
Okay, sounds good. So, of course, that bread looks delicious, and we got the kind of step-by-step tutorial from Rick. But now let's go to a little refreshment. So this is kind of a dessert drink. It doesn't really have a typical name, but we call it the Moroccan white chocolate and mint delight. So I will turn it over to a past version of myself to walk you all through that. And if you can't hear sound or if it's coming through softly, just let me know in the chat and we will try and get that fixed. But without further ado, here is myself.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Kingdom of Morocco. So Rick has, gone through and picked out some great recipes, and I wanted to make sure that we had some drinks to match. And usually we do a non-alcoholic cocktail and an alcoholic cocktail, but since Morocco is 99% Muslim and part of Islam is, for many Muslims, is staying off of alcohol and drugs and things like that, we're going to do 2 non-alcoholic cocktails today. The first one I'll be starting out with right now, actually, is our Moroccan white chocolate mint drink. It is a super rich, decadent coconut white chocolate and mint extract drink. So it's great to serve on a summer day for some dessert, but I will go ahead and get started. So first step, and I'm gonna flip our camera around here, is to take some of our white chocolate. I'm just using regular white chocolate chips, but you can use, melting chocolate, whatever. I've already started the process a little bit, but you're going to want to take about 1/4 to 1/2 cup of white chocolate chips. Adjust that if you're using, the discs or whatever the case is. And you're going to want to microwave that on 30-second increments until the chocolate is melted. So I'm going to hit this chocolate with one more 30-second trip in the microwave. And while I'm doing that, I would actually like to tell y'all a few facts about Morocco. One being, like I said in the beginning, that it is officially a kingdom. So just like Saudi Arabia or some of the other countries in the Middle East, Morocco is a kingdom. It's up there in the Mediterranean by in North Africa. And this is cool, actually. It was the first country to recognize the United States as an independent nation in 1777. So Morocco and America go way back. It is becoming a very popular destination for American travelers. And part of that is because they have great cuisine and great drinks like these. So I'll just show you the white chocolate. It's starting to melt up pretty nicely now, so I'm just going to stir that up. And between those 30-second increments that you have the white chocolate in the microwave, you're going to want to stir it up just to make sure that things aren't sticking or burning or whatever the case is. So now I'm going to take 1 cup of coconut cream. So coconut cream, I actually found out through making this drink, is a little bit different than coconut milk. So you can get both in a can at the store in your kind of like the Asian food section of your grocery store. But the coconut cream actually has a little bit more coconut fat. They're basically the same thing. And I'm just going to set this up so you can see me stirring. They're basically the same thing, but the drink definitely has more, or the coconut cream has more fat, and the coconut milk's going to be a little thinner. So we're just going to mix this up, mixing the white chocolate in with the coconut cream. And one thing that I found out that I didn't know is when you open coconut milk or coconut cream, sometimes the fat and the liquid will have separated out. And so what I found helpful was putting it in a container to mix it, but also giving it just a couple seconds, 30 to 40 seconds in the microwave, so that fat can melt and integrate with the rest of the coconut juice that was in the can. So we're just going to mix that up, make sure that chocolate is nice and mixed in. This might take a couple seconds, some elbow grease to really make sure that that chocolate is nice and incorporated. Give that a couple more mixes. Perfect. So now we are going to take about 1/4 cup of this and put it in the fridge for kind of our float on top of the drink after we freeze it, because we're gonna have to do that. So I'm gonna take this and put it in my fridge, and we will come back to that later. So now we have got our coconut cream and white chocolate mixture, minus a fourth of that, going into the fridge. Now we're gonna take a half a cup of coconut milk, which is again that kind of like coconut cream. It's probably what you're more familiar with. Coconut cream just has those more fat solids in it. So we're gonna go ahead and put that in there and then stir that up. Okay, and now this next part is pretty fun. So I will show you all kind of end results. This is what it looks like right now. Not super appetizing, kind of looks like a soup. But we are going to put in some mint extract that'll give it a little kick. Think of this like a kind of a Moroccan shamrock shake. So just a couple drops. I'd go 3 or 4. You don't want to overpower anything. And then we're also going to put in, this is optional, but I like it, this green food coloring to give it a little bit of a fun color. I'm going to do 4 drops of that as well. You can really just kind of go by preference. It's going to be a really cool mixture, and I'll show you all this right now. There we go. Okay. But this is a great thing to pull out for your next little get-together out on the porch or something like that. You'll pull this out, you'll impress everybody, and you can give them some facts about Morocco that you've learned here from both me and Rick. So now that that mixture is mixed up, you are going to take a glass, pour the mixture in, and then we are going to let this set up in the freezer for about 2 hours. So you do have a couple options here. You can let it set in the freezer, like I was saying, for about 2 hours, but if you have an ice cream maker, this drink only takes about 10 minutes to complete. And I've actually got a cocktail that's been sitting in the fridge for a little bit. It might not be quite set all the way, but it's closer than this one. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch these out to show you the end result. Alright, so this is the drink that's been sitting for 30, 40 minutes now. I didn't have the full time to let it set up completely, but it's definitely got a little bit of a thicker consistency. Think not quite soft serve ice cream, but like a thin milkshake. Okay, now, so we have the cocktail. We're gonna take that reserve fourth of a cup that we did not add any dye to and took out before we added the coconut milk. And we're just gonna float that on into the drink to kind of give it a creamier aspect and mix that up. And then we are ready to drink. All right, this is the Moroccan mint white chocolate drink, and it is really delicious. I've tried some ahead of time. Man, that's good. Okay, I will see y'all in a little bit for some refreshing Moroccan mint tea.
Okay, we're back in the kitchen. Let me try and get this lined up right. Hold on. We're using low-tech cameras here.
And that framing right there looks about good, Rick. Yes, perfect right there. We can see both the frying pan and then your ingredients.
All right. So let's pretend it's 40 minutes later. You've put the bread in the oven. You're going to bake it at about depending on altitude. At this altitude, probably about 450 for 25 minutes. About halfway through, you're going to turn it. But again, because we slowed down the activation of the yeast, that will tend to dry out the bread. So I baked it at 450 for 25 minutes. And one trick is underneath the baking pan, just put in a pan full of water. Get it boiling first on the stovetop. Get the oven heated. Put this in on the bottom. Put the bread on the rack on top of it. And this is what it should look like when it's done. It's got a great aroma to it. It's you scored it so the edges are really crisp. And you'll break off sections of it. And in some cases, hollow the bread out and use it as a spoon or an eating utensil. So you don't want it to be real brown on top. You want a little color. You want most of the color to be on the bottom, like this. Break it off, use it, tastes great. So that's kebabs. All right, so we're going to get started on the chicken Tagine. It's spelled actually Tagine, but the G is pronounced like an SH. So it's chicken Tagine. We're gonna heat. You can use either a deep Dutch oven. I like to use a paella pan because I actually like it to be a little bit drier at the end and not so soupy or like a stew. So we're going to use a paella pan. You want to take all of the spices that I referred to before. We're going to put them in a container so they can just hang out together for about 10 or 15 minutes. So while the oven is heating, we're combining all the spices except the saffron. And again, I'm using a Spanish saffron, but it will go in at the very end. In goes the cinnamon. All right. And we just want those to hang out together for about 5 or 10 minutes. Okay. So we're going to take the chicken. I've already mixed up salt and pepper. You can do it separately if you want. But you really want to liberally, and I mean liberally, I just do it on one side because I just want the skin side to be really, really crispy. You might want to do it on both sides. Let that sit for a minute. Let's get the paella pan going. I put in, well, a tablespoon, maybe 2 tablespoons of extra EVOO, extra virgin olive oil. Wait until you see it begin to smoke just a little bit. Okay, you can't see it, I don't think, but it is now starting to smoke. And if my smoke alarm goes off, oh well, you want to brown it skin side down. Make sure you get it in the oil. And again, you'll see that we trimmed it, leaving most of the fat on. That's where the taste and the crunch will be, as you know. And we'll brown it for about 3 minutes on one side. Let it brown it on the other side. And we've got all these great aromatics.
Hey, Rick, you're coming through a little bit distorted again. I think it's maybe better when you're like directly kind of in front of the this microphone.
Okay, so is this better?
Let's see.
Sorry, guys, it's as high tech as I can get.
Right there is about good, I think.
All right, well, part of the problem is the sound of the chicken that's cooking as well. But you'll be surprised if you just put the aromatics together for 5 minutes, how much they intersperse, and it really enhances the taste. And by the way, over here, because I'm going to serve it on a base of couscous, which is easy to make. I've already made the couscous. You want it to dry out a little bit before you put the chicken and the veggies on top because they're so wet. All right, so we're working on the chicken. We're going to give it about 2 minutes on each side. While we're doing that, you want to mix the garlic and the preserved lemon rind together. You want them to hang out for at least 10 minutes before you use them. You'll be amazed at how much of the garlic flavor the preserved onion rind picks up, which is what you want. All right, let's see what we have here. We're going to flip these 2 or 3 times. You just want to get a little brown, not a lot. Can you see the brown at all? There we go. All right, 2 minutes on that side. I'm going to let them brown a little bit. Look. All right, as they're browning on this side, you want to remove the skin. You want the flavor of the skin, but you don't want the skin itself. So let me get a knife. Actually, I'll just use scissors. And we're removing the skin. Again, we want the taste, but we don't want them to get too brown and bring a scorched taste to the meal. Okay. All right, they're about 30% cooked. We want to pull them off, put them on a plate, and let them continue to cook. And chicken, when you take it off of a hot surface, will typically continue to cook for about 3 or 4 minutes. So, you've got it off. Let's turn this down a little bit. And in go the onions. And move them around a lot. So we want them to cook a little bit beyond translucent. We want to start seeing some brown edges. Boy, I wish you could smell that. That's amazing. There we go. We're gonna keep moving these around. Lots more. Get back in. Right. All right. Now, just as they're getting translucent like this, and again, if you don't constantly move them around, they'll scorch. And if they scorch even a few of them, it brings a really bitter taste to this whole brew. All right. I don't know if you can see it because of lighting, but they're definitely translucent. They're starting to brown. Keep them moving. All right, we're going to add another layer of flavor. And in Mediterranean cooking, Southern European, and certainly North Africa, layers of flavor is the most important thing. So we started with chicken. We've moved in onion. We're going to put in about half of this preserved lemons and garlic. And that aroma just explodes off of the plate, the lemons. All right, so we're working that. We'll work this for another few minutes. Constantly moving because you don't want the lemon, the garlic. Mom, would you get just a couple of tablespoons of water out of there? Yeah, just a little bit, little tiny bit. That's good. Yeah, perfect. We definitely don't want to get it dry. All right, this is perfect. It's just starting to brown. We're going to add the remaining preserved lemon and garlic, minced garlic. And when you do the garlic here, you'll notice I really roughly cut it. You don't want it minced. It'll get too dry. Okay. Now we're about to see the whole thing take off. The third layer of flavor. We're going to put in the flour so that we make kind of a quasi roux. Couple tablespoons of flour. Now you really don't want that flour to burn, so you got to keep it moving. We're going to add in all the spices. And again, I wish you could, the aromatics in this are just amazing. All right. Now, we're going to put in the chicken stock. Don't use chicken broth. It's not strong enough. You want to use chicken stock, but you want the flour and the aromatics to coat all of the onions like that. Now, slowly start to add in the chicken stock, not all at once, because you're trying to create a semi-roux with the flours. And you can see we're doing this. See how thick it is? That's what you want. You can add in some more. Now find the rest. Now we're going to let that bring it up to a simmer first. Just a small simmer. You'll see on the edges. There it is. And we're going to add 2 to 3 tablespoons of honey. Let's keep moving it around. And you want to keep scraping the bottom. See how dark it's getting? That's because of all the stuff on the bottom that we're scraping up. It's the morsels that are stuck to the bottom of the pan that carry all of the taste. All right. Now, it's starting to simmer. We are going to add back in now the chicken, bring it up to a boil. Perfect. And we're going to put in about 3 or 4 carrots, just no more than about 1/4 of an inch thick, 3 or 4. And we're going to let that simmer. It's going to need to simmer about 10 or maybe 15 minutes.
Cover?
10 or 15 minutes uncovered. And then we'll finish it up and plate it. So I'm going to kick it back. Walker, to you.
Sounds good. So we have a quick, refreshing Moroccan mint tea on deck, and then we will throw it back to Rick. This will not take super long just because it's tea. It's pretty simple. All right. So I will let myself take that away.
Hi everyone, welcome back. You've had some great food instruction from Rick, so we will turn it back to the drink portion of things. And like I said, again, this is going to be a non-alcoholic drink. We're going to do a Moroccan green tea with mint. That's pretty traditional in Morocco. It's one of the beverages that you would receive if you were staying with a Moroccan family or something like that. It's just part of hospitality and part of community in Morocco is this particular tea. What I really appreciate about it is they actually finished it off with a large amount of sugar, which is awesome. I'm actually from the South, which I think I mentioned last time. So this idea of tea as a social thing that's very sweet is near and dear to me. But I'll show you what I've done. So I don't have a great steeping teapot for loose leaf tea, so I just used a pot. I brewed some loose green tea leaves, as well as 2 mint sprigs and a couple of mint leaves. And so that's been steeping for quite a while now. So I'll go ahead and pour that into a glass, and it is traditionally served in a glass container. And then, of course, you'll see all that particulate and stuff in there, the tea leaves, the mint, but all of that is probably gonna filter to the bottom pretty soon. So, and then in place of sugar, I'm gonna use agave syrup just because I kind of like that taste, but you're looking for really sweet. So for a glass like this, you might be putting in 3 to 5 tablespoons of sugar. So you're really going to want to make this sweet, but again, that is completely up to preference. I'm going to put in quite a good bit of agave syrup, not traditional, but my preference, like I was saying. And we'll go ahead and stir that up. And again, all those tea leaves are going to float to the bottom and end up there. They won't be too out there while you're drinking, so that'll be good. But this is Moroccan green tea with mint. I'm going to go ahead and give it a try. Oh man, that is good. Yeah, the sweetness, if you're not a sweet tooth, maybe ease up on the sugar a little bit, but I would say if you like sweet at all, this is a great combination of flavors. You got the mint kind of cutting through that sweetness. You got the green tea, which is a super nice kind of a mellow, sharp flavor, and then the sugar or whatever you used as a sweetener on the back end is awesome. Cheers.
All right, are we back? That looks great.
Yeah, and just a couple of tasting notes on that tea and cooking notes. So traditionally, Moroccans really love Chinese gunpowder green tea or gun barrel green tea. And so that's traditionally what's used. And it's almost always steeped loose leaf with those mint sprigs.
I wish you guys could smell this. It is killer. All right, so the chicken is not yet ready, and it will take probably another 10 or 12 minutes. But while it's cooking, I would like you to see how we plate it, just so you'll know. So you want to use, because it's such a pretty dish, don't put it on a tiny plate. It's such a pretty dish, you want to plate it on a fairly large plate. And you want to put on the bottom a few sprigs of the European romaine. Again, this was from my garden. It just brings, it's like an Asian romaine, and it brings a dry, slightly bitter, very slightly bitter taste. And it's just really great in this dish. So we're going to make it as attractive as possible. You want to put the European romaine on the bottom of the plate. You want to put, again, you want to make the couscous well enough ahead of time that it's just really dry. See that? It's just really dry. So you want a nice helping of that on the bottom. Maybe a sprig of cilantro on top. And to finish off the chicken, we're going to do two quick things. We're going to add the halved Greek olives, and you want to buy the ones in oil because that really adds to the flavor. How pretty that is. We're going to get a half of a regular lemon, not preserved, over the top. And just to show you how it will appear on the plate, want to make sure we get plenty of the olives, the onion. So there you have it. That's the plated chicken tashini. It's got carrots, oiled Greek olives, onion, lots of garlic, a good bit of preserved lemon, and it's good to go. Bon appetit.
That looks so delicious. So one of the only things that we don't like about this whole process is that Rick is in the Western Slope, so none of us can go over for this delicious food unless you live out there. But that looks amazing, Rick. So what is when was the first time you had chicken tagine, Rick?
At my restaurant, Tante Luce in Santa Fe. It was a variation of this, was on the menu, and it was probably, it wasn't the favorite, but it was in the top 2 or 3. And we actually served it. I want to show you this with, do you see how that bread breaks apart? It's really hard outside. I wish you could hear that. And it's moist. It's heavy, but it's moist. And the way North African would eat this is to hollow out this part, to turn it into almost like a spoon, and to use it as an utensil to dine. So anyway, there you have the finished plate. Enjoy.
Wow, that is a stunning meal, and we can still see the other 5 chicken thighs. Rick, I really do wish I was out there with you right now so we could enjoy that meal together, but I'm sure that you and Marilyn and Chili will enjoy it just the same.
We will, and one of these days, you and I will enjoy it.
Let's do it. Well, thank you all for coming. We're right at time now, so thanks everybody for stopping by and learning a little bit about Morocco with us. Of course, seeing Rick's beautiful cooking and some refreshing drinks and stuff like that. But we are going to go ahead and end it, and I'm just going to share screen to show you our upcoming events. So more little talks, more virtual excursions. So our little talk for July will be on physical health and also self-care. So you can join that one. And then our next adventure, our next virtual excursion will be to Poland. But thanks again, everybody, for stopping by. And I will be sending out a list of recipes and the PowerPoint so you can have everything that we talked about today, just in case you want to reference it or use it later. But thanks again, Rick and Marilyn, for showing us that amazing food. And we will see you all in Poland.
Bye-bye.